Indian Classical Music Festival is coming to Leeds this weekend with an event at 7 Arts Centre in Chapel Allerton tomorrow night, and here's what you can expect.
This weekend, Leeds welcomes Saudha, the Society of Poetry and Indian Music, who are once again presenting the Indian Classical Music Festival. The event is taking place tonight and on Saturday night at 7 Arts in Chapel Allerton. We caught up with director of Saudha, Ahmed, to find out what we have to look forward to.
The event, the title of the event is World Poetry and Indian Classical Music Festival. We find poetry and other form of serious art as the way to interpret the mood of Indian classical music. You know that all classical music is stereotyped as, very complex or very abstract form of art. So we just chose some other form of art, like poetry, dance, Kathak dance, to interpret the inner meaning of classical music. So even, people who are not familiar with Indian classical music, or are non-technical audience, who come to, this is happening for third time actually in Leeds. We do nationwide events. So even for non-technical audience who comes to our event, they have got at least some clues, at least some images to focus on when they're listening to music. No, well, obviously classical, only because the approach to classical music is not probably, or effort to understand classical music is not good enough. That's why people have a very wrong stereotype that classical music is for just some intellectual people, which is not. Classical, when we organize events, we just end up with having, very non-technical, very ordinary audiences who eventually, when the event finishes, they leave so many lovely feedbacks that, they find it hypnotizing. A Guardian actually covered us as a hypnotic event organizers when he did it. Friday is just poetry event with the live music. Local poets will be reciting poetry with some live music, but main event is happening on Saturday. So 3 of the top-notch Indian classical musicians are coming. Although we are committed to the pure form of art, but we don't present, art in its pure form. We fusionize, we hybridize, classical music, like I said, with, in some extent, Western classical, in some extent, poetry, Kathak dance, and, in some extent, painting as well. We end up with having 97% in some extent Western audience, non-Asian audience, and who said that, you proved that music is universal because we didn't have any problem. It looks like that is, you covered a very world or universal form of art that, we didn't have any problem in understanding the actual layer of music. That we also, this year we're starting a nationwide events actually. So with some projects. Royal Albert Hall, we're performing in Royal Albert Hall, Philharmonic Hall in Liverpool, and many mainstream venues in London as well. So we are not just being localized in any area. So we will be probably coming to any area in this country first, just to propagate the magic of classical music.
The Indian Classical Music Festival, despite what its name might suggest, is not only about music. Performance poet John told us about how one of the festival's aims is to amalgamate various forms of arts from cultures across the world to create a truly unique effect.
A poem by Tagore. I have ever loved thee in 100 forms and times, age after age, in birth following birth. The chain of songs that my fond heart did weave, thou graciously didst take around thy neck, age after age, in birth following birth. That poem by Tagore is one that it'll be the last poem that I read on Saturday. It will be in a series of poems with songs with Chandra Chakraborty, and at the rehearsal she came up with the most extraordinary prayer-like song to sing with it, which built as the poem built.